Drum roll. I'm live.
Yay!
Live from Sky. Hello, welcome. Sorry, everyone that's joining online. We had a slight delay. We're here now. Okay, so today, well, the next 5 days, we're going to be working in this middle section of the day with family constellations at kind of umbrella. So we'll be looking at lots of different parts within, or just within life in general, but we'll be applying family constellations perspective to those parts. Mother, father, shame, pleasure, these types of things, big hard hitters. So it is transformational work, and that's what we're here for. We are held by these incredible lands. So if you want to go as deep as these mountains, then you've got the place to do it. So really, whatever wants to come up for you in these days that we're in this space together is absolutely welcome. In fact, it's really encouraged. Don't hold back. When you hold back, it means things are unresolved, and that's kind of the opposite of what we're here to look at these next 5 days. So why am I here in terms of Lilia's mission in Heal Scotland? Because not only just from the food that we eat, the lifestyles that we have, the way that we breathe, walk, live, I'm looking at things from a perspective of what's unresolved emotionally in the family systems. So you can also talk to Jenny about this. She's just finished her facilitator training. So she's also facilitating family constellations. So really what we're looking at is what's unresolved. It doesn't go away. So our beautiful ancestors thought they were doing the best thing that they could for us by just holding their own ship and taking it to the grave in the hope that no one else would have to deal with it, and that would just be their story, their sadness, their pain, their suffering, and that would be the end of it. But epigenetics is showing us, and we just know it within ourselves, that it's not the end of it. It doesn't go away. So whatever sits unresolved in our family systems plays out over and over and over through the next generations, trying to be seen. When it is seen, it can rest. And that's as simple as that. It's as simple as welcome it and let it go. It's as simple as that. It really is. Once it's seen and given a place. Has anyone got kids or grandkids? Have you watched Encanto? And we don't talk about Bruno. That's constellations. Whatever's excluded is actually running the system. It's running the show. Whatever doesn't have a place is judged and excluded, will grow and grow and grow in power in the shadows, and will become stronger and keep trying to be seen, keep trying to find justice, keep trying to find, and that's the key word, justice. So look at the world that we're in today. How does constellations link into the new story? Everyone wants justice. Everyone wants the bad people gone and the good people growing. But whilst we hold an idea of bad people and good people and justice or injustice, we're never going to get anywhere new. We're just going to, it'll flip from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And so history goes on as we've seen. So the new story is about not bringing in anything new, not changing anything to be good or bad, or now the good people will win and things will be good. It's inside of us, and what's inside of us is dissolving this idea of victims and perpetrators, of right and wrong, and constellations work is a fundamental part of that. When we can accept that everyone, first of all within our family systems, but in the wider family, has a place, regardless of their political views, regardless of their vaccination views, regardless of their football team that they support, what colour their skin is, and all the rest of it. Even if their really behaviours are questionable, they have a place. Even if they've murdered, even if they're part of some paedophile ring, child trafficking, the worst things that you can think of that you would class as unforgivable, how can you allow those people to have a place? That's the new story. When you can get that inside of you, that's what changes our vibration. That as humans, that's how we go forward. Otherwise, we just implode. So how do we use constellations to do that? We have to really focus on our ideas of victims and perpetrators and justice and injustice. So think of your own family systems right now. We all get told stories, like see when we're young, things you know about your grandparents. If your grandparents, lucky you if you had grandparents as you grew up. But most of us didn't, and most of us just had grandparents when we were young, or maybe we didn't know them at all. What about great-grandparents? So the things you know about your family system are other people's stories, other people's perspectives of who these people were. Oh, you know, your grandfather he just drank all the time, or Granny was really lovely and sweet, or she was stern and she was this. And like, you don't really get to decide those things on your own. You just get, you know, other people's views. So we're just made up of stories. Our whole perspectives are made up of stories. And then our own experiences of when we have been victims. And when we've been victims of something, that is the most destructive part. That's the most destructive vibration for us in our bodies. When there's an injustice and people feel victimized, this is very clearly what turns into dis-ease. Eventually it manifests in the body. So if someone comes and they say, oh, this person has got cancer, this person has got this person has got that, instantly I can ask them and it'll be true. Tell me about your family system, and there'll be all sorts of things woven in there that are unresolved. And now that doesn't necessarily mean bad things. You know, people think that it's trauma. People think that unresolved trauma is from things like sexual abuse only, or murder, or these kind of things. But it actually can come from, well, it all comes from love. Just a lot of the time it's wonky love, or a very strange idea of love, or a fear of not having love, or trying to take love, or it boils down to that at the end of the day. But sometimes it can be as beautiful as premature death of a loved one that you just can't get over. That's an unresolved trauma. It's as simple as that. That's just something that happens. But if it's not processed and it sits unresolved, it can create a belief, and then that's what gets passed down to the next generations. Or it can also create a distraction. So I'm going to give you a little example now. First of all, I'll tell you quickly about the collective conscience of your family system. So because we're going to be doing this over 5 days, I'm just going to do a little bite size each day. But the collective conscience of your family system. Now I'm saying conscience, not conscious. Conscience, as in the idea of right and wrong. Your moral compass. That's what I'm talking about. So you have your own, which is based on what do you think would feed into your own moral compass, your own ideas of right and wrong, your own conscience? What kind of things? What beliefs? They get instilled from where? Religion, yep.
Fidelity and infidelity.
And who tells you those types of things? What's good and bad and right and wrong? Because obviously some religions...
Yeah, well, culture and parents.
Exactly. Your culture, teachers, religions, like social society, where you're born, what country, all this type of stuff. So that's kind of... And we'll all have a slightly different one. You know, even although we might be Western and we might be this and we might share all these types of things, we've all got different family systems. So we will all have a different... Although it might be similar, or like, oh, that's right, that's wrong, oh, that's terrible, oh, that's really lovely. You will have a different one, like Lily and I will have a different one, because we've got different family systems, and these beliefs get passed down. So your conscience is just fed by all of those things. But your collective conscience of your whole family system holds all the information of all of the previous generations that you've no idea about, all of their right doings and wrongdoings and behaviours that kind of went unaccounted for, that weren't acknowledged a lot of the time, or that just weren't processed. Like how many women in all of our systems lost babies and had no space to grieve that and just had to go on. It was generational. That has a huge impact. So the collective conscience holds all of the sadness, the pain, the suffering, and the trauma from every member of your family system all the way back. And that's what we're looking for in constellation work. When we work in this field, we're looking for what was unresolved. So Frankie and I, we could both have a grandfather that went to war and killed someone. And Frankie's grandfather could say, you know, inside himself, well, you know, it was kill or be killed. I'm okay with what I had to do. I'm fine. That's resolved. Or he might have a little bit of remorse, but it's resolved. Okay, that's not going to show up all the way down the next generations. My grandfather could really just not live with that pain, that regret, that guilt, that maybe he just didn't even want to be there, he didn't want to go to war, who knows? But it's not the action. It's whether it was resolved emotionally or not. So that's going to manifest down the line because my grandfather's trauma wasn't resolved. So the reason I'm telling you that is don't sit and think of every single scenario that you're aware of in your family system and think, oh shit, I need to sort that, I need to sort that, I need to sort that, I need to sort that. Because it's not as grim as that.
We need to take over the place.
Yeah. It's just what's unresolved, and you might not necessarily carry all of it. It could be siblings, can all carry different parts, and there's no way to describe. You just never know. You only know when you look into the constellation what it is that's actually showing up. You can't do it in your mind. You can't make sense of it. It's impossible. So save yourself time and don't try, because you'll go crazy. You can't work it all out and then you'll start to feel bad, which is the opposite of what we're trying to do. So it's just so that you're aware. There are unseen things playing out that we can't control, and they will play out. They will always play out. So the way that we heal that is to just allow it to be there. Not good, not bad. You don't have to feel your grandmother's pain because she lost her child. But you can acknowledge that she had pain because she lost her child. And you can bow to that grandmother and honour that you came from her, but you don't have to carry her pain for her. And that's the difference. It's as subtle as that. But what we actually do is we carry the pain for them. We carry the pain for our parents and all the rest of them. And a lot of it is because we just want to be seen. We all just want to be seen. So I'm going to show you a little example with these fabrics. People on the live might not be able to see. So no, I can't do it. I'm going to have to do it on the floor.
Should I hold that in a certain way?
You can if you want. Aim it down. Okay, so this is your.
Yeah, we're there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just say this is your mother. Okay. So mother had let's say this is your grandmother. And grandmother had a lost child. Who knows if it was an abortion, a miscarriage, stillborn, or baby died when it was young. All sorts. Okay, so the little V is the way that they're facing. So if this is your grandmother, and this is her child that's died. Okay, the child goes outside of the system. Okay, and then your mother comes in, and she's the next generation. She's looking at grandmother energetically looking at grandmother to receive life. So life goes in one direction only. You don't give life back to the previous generation, you receive life. And if you're trying to give life back, everything's out of balance. Okay, so if you're trying, it's not to say you can't love your parents, but if you're trying to give life back, you're basically standing behind them where their parents should be. Okay, I'll get more into that later. But here we've got your mother as a little child trying to receive life, attention, and everything from her mother. But guess where her mother is energetically looking? At this unresolved trauma of the lost baby. Who knows why? She didn't have time, she didn't have space, who knows why? Who knows why that wasn't resolved? But it wasn't resolved. So the whole time, and this baby's never spoken of. You know, it died and that's it, and there's 8 more. So this baby just doesn't exist anymore. But that dead baby, the collective conscience, whether it's your grandmother's choice or not, the collective conscience wants this baby to have a place, because everyone has a place, regardless of their deeds, regardless of their length of life. Let's just say I could also swap that out to be somebody murdered someone and went to prison and we don't talk about them anymore. Okay, the collective conscience wants this one to have its place. So whilst it's excluded, always the attention will be going to what's excluded. Okay, so here's your mother trying to get attention, can't be seen. So what happens when you're born? There you are looking at your mum, trying to get your attention, your life force, trying to be seen. Now, obviously, in real life, they're facing you, but they can't see you, not really, because she's looking at her mum, and her mum's looking at this dead baby. So such a simple thing trickles all the way down, and it keeps going on, because your child comes in, and you can't fully see your child, no matter how you try, because you've got a mother wound, because your mum didn't see you. But your mum's got a mother wound, because her mum didn't see her. And so it goes. Okay? Another example, this could be your dad, and his father died when he was young. There he is, your grandfather out of the system. Dad's attention is going to dead father. Here you come in, wanting to be seen by your dad. Can't be seen. Where's dad looking at the excluded part? Your child comes in, can't see you. You can't see them. And so it continues. But what happens is, what do you do if you're trying desperately to be seen and you're not being seen? Do you just stay where you are and accept that? No. Where do you think you might go and stand? Where they're looking. So if this is your dad and he's looking at his dead grandfather, the chance is you're going to go and identify with the dead grandfather, because you're going to go wherever he's looking. So this is what we call in Constellations as an identification. It's when you merge subconsciously, because you're standing in someone else's role and you've no idea. But what that might look like is you could start parenting your father. You could feel like his father. You could get sick. You could be like, oh, I'm existing, but I'm really not. I'm dead, half alive. You could actually die, and that happens when the identification is really strong. So, and again, if that wasn't a dead baby or a dead father, say that was a murderer or somebody that was in jail or whatever it might be, you might start out their story, getting in trouble or stealing things and all sorts, or addictions, all sorts can come. And you think, oh, it's all just one person's responsibility. But we don't realise how much is actually coming from the collective conscience, that we've just magnetized some unresolved story and now we're playing it out. And it happens a lot in relationships, happens with money. If you're like, oh God, I don't ever have enough money, can't hold on to money, people keep stealing from me, what is it? And you can look back in the constellation and somewhere back there, some money was achieved through some ill-gotten way. There was betrayal, there was slavery, there was exploitation, whatever it was. And so somehow the collective conscience wants that to be balanced out and says, right, you're going to lose all that money because actually the money that was got further back wasn't, So, any questions on this so far? Is it making sense? So, I'm going to ask you with your journals to just have a think and write down for me. You could do as many as you want, your mum and your dad, or you can just focus on one parent. And don't do it up here and say, oh, that's the exact reason, but have a think of where else your mum or dad's attention might have been going. For example, I know that both my parents had an older sibling that died as a baby, then they came afterwards. I also know that my grandfather was a prisoner of war. I also know that my grandmother's father died when she was really young. So these types of things, have a think. For as much as you know, you might not know very much, and that's fine, but just put down for me where possibilities of where you think the attention could be moved towards rather than going in the right direction from generation to generation. What unresolved traumas?
Susan's watching.
I agree.
You were saying it was like his father and his father. Could it be father and his mother? Or
Yeah.
just following this?
No, absolutely
You
either.
can be affected by it.
Yeah. So the ones we get affected by are all of our parents and their parents, and also their siblings. So and your own children. But outside of that, it's unlikely that it would affect. So, for example, your cousin wouldn't really affect you that much, but your auntie or uncle would, because it would have an impact on your parent, which would then come down to you. So it's whatever's coming down to you will come through a parent, full stop. So both your mum and your dad, and then whatever could feed into mum or dad as unresolved could impact them from their mum, their dad, any of their grandparents, or brothers or sisters, or significant others, like adoptive.
In that role.
Yeah, or like first wife, second wife. Sometimes even it's like if they were in an orphanage, it can be the guardians, or concentration camps. It could be like the, what do you call it, like the guards. Yeah, so anyone that has like a direct impact, and also
Teachers.
Murderers and victims, or life takers, let's see, because it could also be an accident, like a car accident, and that creates a stronger bond than blood. When a life is taken, the victim becomes part of the perpetrator's family system, and the perpetrator becomes part of the victim's family system. So if we were applying this in prisons, what a difference in whilst we hold on to like a perpetrator and that exclusion, you know, when you see them when they go to court and the families are all outside and they want justice, and this person, regardless of what they've done, becomes dehumanized. You know, they are just this massive perpetrator, and when you can allow them to be part of the family system, regardless of the deeds, it brings a different balance. So that's a really, really big one, which we really are nowhere near. We're not even close to working with that one yet. So I'm going to give you 3 different examples, and then I'll give you another 5 minutes to think about it, just to see if it triggers anything deeper for you. So one example, I had a client who was suicidal, didn't know why, had a really good childhood and family, but had this call to just kill yourself, just kill yourself, just kill yourself. And in the constellation, we saw that the great-grandfather was in the war, and the constellation wanted to show that the great-grandfather had killed innocents, just an innocent family in a village in the war. And we know factually that the great-grandfather had committed suicide, and came back from the war and lived a long life of like violence and alcohol, and then eventually committed suicide. So the son, which was the grandfather, had schizophrenia, and the next son, which was the father, had severe depression, and then the next generation was this call to suicide. So what happened in the constellation was the victims of the great-grandfather, the innocent in this village, wherever they were completely excluded. It was the source of shame. And when they were brought in and given their place in the family system, everything released. The whole, all 4 generations released. Because it was the power of them not ever being known, not ever being, those lives were taken, and there wasn't that. So when that happened, my client was actually identifying with these victims, that's where all the attention was going. That white fabric was the victims of the great-grandfather. So the schizophrenia is when you identify with the victim and the perpetrator at the same time. So his son was linked with both of them. The next one linked depression. The next one linked suicide. And when they were given a place, no longer excluded, they were given a place, and these healing sentences were used for them to be part of the family system, the suicide tendencies disappeared. And it was just as simple as that identification, because it was so powerful. Another example, there's so many. So a great-grandmother died in childbirth. I had a client and she'd had something like 8 or 12 pregnancies, miscarrying quite late term, and just couldn't go full term. Had no problem conceiving, but couldn't go full term. And that's what happened. The constellation showed us that this grandmother had died during childbirth, and there was this belief within the system that if you give birth, you'll die. Couldn't go full term. So when that grandmother and her story were given a place, the problem was gone, and then she sent me a photograph a year later. This is my little boy. Yeah. So it's powerful stuff. It's really, what I mean is the unresolved trauma is powerful stuff. It's not to be taken lightly. It has so much of an impact on our lives. Another one which is more kind of everyday, you've got a client and her father has a really bad relationship, like quite violent and aggressive, and the grandfather, so the father's father, had been violent with his wife and then kicked her out, and so what was happening, the client's father was identified with his father, so he was the perpetrator, and the client was identified with the victim, the grandmother, who'd been excluded and kicked out. So they were playing out this old story between the previous generation over the split generation. So the father and his daughter were playing out the story of the grandmother and grandfather because it was unresolved, bless you. So it was as simple as that. We just cut. You are not your father, you're her father. You are not your grandmother, you are you. Do the healing sentences and do this constellation on it. And then they get to stand in their own place and they're not magnetized someone else's place. It's about, if you visualize a family tree, everyone's seen a family tree. That's what it should look like. Life goes to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. You've not got a family tree where people go back up here. But that's what we're doing. When it's not resolved, that's what we're doing. We can't be in our own place.
Tell them the one about the blew my mind. Was it Inner Dance? Remember the guy from Korea?
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't know anything about the story, but you knew there was something different and major. I just think.
Yeah, I can't really remember all the details of that one.
He was adopted.
Yeah.
He was trafficked out of, he was taken from his parents, remember, and then taken to Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
And his brother.
Yeah, that was the story we knew, that he didn't really know the ins and outs of it, but he knew that he'd been adopted to Belgium. And then when we set up the constellation, and he wanted to bring peace because he knew he had biological parents and he knew these were his adoptive parents. But the adoptive ones weren't in Belgium.
No, they'd moved to Belgium.
They moved, so they adopted him,
The police
in
were taking
Korea.
the kids off the street, and they get taken away from the biological
Uh-huh.
parents. And he knew he'd been loved because he had such love in him. He knew there was his biological parents, but he just didn't know the story.
Mm-hmm. And then when we set it up, and the both parents, biological parents, were showing so much love and shame that I was like, this is not a normal scenario. Normally they would have different behaviours that would be more in keeping with the story that he told us. Like this isn't making sense. So we did the constellation, and also I was like, there's something with it's almost monk-like, it was such a level of peace and tranquility and prayer. And then that's what he told us afterwards, that he was from a lineage of
the
Tibetan or something like that.
Yeah. But you knew because it was something that you hadn't really seen very often.
Yeah.
That's why, and then when I spoke to him later, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, you just get tuned in to what's happening. Yeah.
Because I suppose a lot of the stuff's pretty similar. How people
Yeah, that's the thing. We all think that we've got all these big traumas. We all think we've got these stories, and we all think it's worse and like it's shameful. I don't mean worse as in like, oh, mine's worse than yours, but it's shameful. Everyone's like, I don't really want to do a constellation in front of a group, because it's really shameful. And actually, this is what I love about this work the most, is that it shows you that we're all the same. We're all exactly the same. Every person that you meet that's alive in this world is somebody's child who didn't get what they needed from their parents, full stop. They were not seen. And you could have the loveliest, and this is for all the parents in the room as well, you need to give yourself a break, because it doesn't matter what you do, you will not be able to see your child the way that they want to be seen.
So how can we heal that? How can we try and break that pattern? Or is it not up to us? Is it not something, is that the human condition that we are here in this lifetime to?
I believe so. I don't know. My personal belief is that it's a soul choice, that you come in and you choose, because it's past life carried on, and that you come in and choose this family that's going to have this life journey, so that you can go through all of this, because that's what you're choosing. That's my belief. I've got no proof of that or nothing to back that up, and I'm totally open for everyone to have their own belief on that. I can't say why, but what I can say is that we all have unresolved traumas in our family systems all the way back, because history is really unpretty. So we can allow. So the way that Family Constellations was started, as we know it, was started by Bert Hellinger, a German Catholic priest, and he went to work with the Zulu as a Catholic missionary, and he noticed that the Zulu, they know 10 generations back who they are. I am son of, son of, son of, son of. And the dynamic that has, when you can honour the ancestors and everyone has a place and you know your place, and there is a hierarchy in the system, in the family system, but we've lost that. We've lost respect for the ancestors. We've lost that. I actually feel really emotional saying that. We really have. And I don't just mean our immediate ancestors and what they know, because actually our immediate ancestors are bloody annoying. They're so annoying. They're like it's like, well, I should be respected because I'm your elder. But yeah, I mean, you're coming with a whole bunch of stuff from post-war generation into this world that we are rapidly progressing forward to the point where, look at what's happened in the last short space of time, where we don't even have genders anymore. That's how diluted everything's becoming, and you take post-war into that, it's really hard. So it's hard to respect the ancestors in that sense, because it's quite jarring when they're telling you this and this and discipline and this and that. But I mean respecting the ancestors for giving us our lives, for suffering, and for being the ones that came at that time and holding what they did. That is what makes me emotional, because it's not about the respect that we think, as in like showing them in this little action, in this little action. It's the deep respect that the Zulu have for the ones that came before them and the ones that came before them, simply because they came before them. That's a fundamental rule of family constellations. The order, what came first, and that's it. And it gives to the next, and that's it. And when we can allow ourselves to be in that space of receiving life from the ones that walked before us, regardless of their actions and regardless of their views, and just that they came, they were, and because of that we are. And that's a deep honouring, and we've lost that completely because we're all so singular. We can just do it on our own now, and we want to disregard all the bits that we don't like about our family systems and make a new one. I'll get married and I'll make a new one, and I'll have children and I'll make a better one. And that one can just disappear, die out, and I'll make a better one here, because I can do that. That's how crazy we are, that we think that can happen. I always talk about the little plant. So if you imagine the little plant, the little seedling, and that's you, and you're starting off your life, and the land, the earth is your mother, and the sun is your father, and your little seedling is trying to put roots in, and the earth is dry and barren, and it's not got much nutrients, and you're really struggling, and the sun's not shining because it's just always dark. Like, help! How does that seedling? You need those things. But somehow you manage, there's just enough light and there's just enough, you can get just enough from the soil, and you grow, and you grow, and you grow, and you grow, and then you're this big substantial tree or bush or whatever you are. And then you go, do you know what, mother, father, you weren't there for me. You didn't give me what I needed. You made it really, really fucking hard for me. I don't need you anymore. What happens to any tree or bush that doesn't have sun or soil? It withers and dies eventually. Might take a long time. But if anyone in this room, if you do not have a feed coming to you from your mother and father, you're withering. Anyone there, if you don't have a feed coming from your mother or father, you're withering as we speak. So this is why it's crucial to start resolving and clearing so that you can honour all of your ancestors and honour the roots, the life force that you have. And the way that we do that is just by knowing that they suffered because they didn't have what they needed. They did not have a parent giving them the attention. They were identified with someone else, all of them, because we all are. And that's the basics. Any questions?
So, yeah, just about our children.
Mm-hmm.
There must be a reason why this is now coming into consciousness now with everything else that's happening on the planet. So how you can just say this and I won't have seen you the way that you need, but just know that I love you anyway. What is the process of stopping the contamination through the...
Well, that's a beautiful question because I can feel that the place that you're asking it from is for love of your own children. And that's beautiful. But what I would say for everyone is actually the best way that you're going to serve your children is to do it inside of you. So do it for you, not for them. And do it so that you are receiving your fullness of life from your parents for you. So if we're doing anything for anyone else, it's secondary and it's got an agenda and it's got an attachment. So the other part, we'll get into this more another day, but we talk a lot about victim and perpetrator. So, and that will be rife throughout your family system, and it'll swap as well. You know, someone will be the victim, someone will be the perpetrator, and then in a few months later they'll have swapped round. So it's always there. Someone's always the baddie and someone's always the goodie. So what we're looking at is if you've got a perpetrator, they're going to be energetically this size, and a victim is going to be this size. And what we do with constellations is we get them both to the same size. We use healing sentences and a very particular movement strategy when we're doing that work for them to then energetically become the same size. So if someone's small, they will never, if you see them as small, out of love, they'll never ever be able to get up to the right size and they'll always stay victimized. So go back to your list now that you've got, read over it, and I'm going to invite you to just check in with yourself. Whatever those scenarios are, or whichever parent you've been looking at, do you hold resentment or pity for each of those scenarios? Because it'll be one or the other. Even if you think it's neither, you're fooling yourself. It's one or the other.
Don't fool yourself. Is both okay on every?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, both for all.
Are we looking at if we find resentment or pity for the mother, or, okay, just an example, my great granny had horrendous dementia, but they kept her in the family and became a big focus, so therefore my mum from her mum didn't receive because of the great granny. So am I looking for resentment or pity for my mother, or for the granny, or for the great granny?
I would just say like the whole situation, because there might be like Nikki just said, you might have resentment and pity for the great granny. You know, if she's like actually, you pity someone who's like got severe dementia, but also can also be resentful because she's causing such a, if they've kept her in the family and it's all, you know. So you might also have pity for your mum for not being seen by her mum, but equally resent her because she hasn't been able to see you. So I'm just, there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just trying to get you to connect in with your own feelings towards your ancestors and how those feelings might be more complex than you realise. And just as an addition, I know it's really far back, so there's probably no information, but when I hear someone with severe dementia, I instantly think, what did they want to forget? You know, when you people with deafness or blindness, what is it they don't want to look at? What did they not want to hear? There's always a question mark around when something like that happens to the physical body that doesn't happen to everyone. What are the circumstances that have led to that?
I put my hair in it.
What don't you want to hear?
Absolutely.
Okay, did anyone not have any scenarios where they felt resentment or pity? No. Good. So the reason I was asking you to do that is because I can ask, okay, who's got something unresolved with their mum or dad? And people just, their heads just go to a bad thing that they've not been able to forgive them for. But if you've forgiven them, then no, I've not got anything. I've not got anything unresolved with my mum or dad. But actually, we always do. And that's not a bad thing. You know, it's not like, oh, you've not done your work. No, it's just there. It's natural. But it can also be from pity that we've got something unresolved. Because if you look at how much you love a parent and what your relationship to them is, so a lot of people automatically go to a bad relationship. Oh, but I don't have a bad relationship with my mum or my dad or whatever it might be. No, I understand that they did their best and that's all fine. But that might be 45-year-old Vida or 30-year-old Vida or 60-year-old Vida that's got to that point. But somewhere in here is 12-year-old Vida that's like, fuck you! No! And yeah, I might have done loads of work to get to the point of saying, well, okay, I don't feel like that anymore. But it still means that we're not in the right direction. We're not like, family constellations is all about, I guess it's why it's called constellations. Where are they in relation to each other? Where are they standing? Where are they looking? What are they receiving? So it's like that family tree. If they're not standing in the right place, if they're over round here, it's because they're looking after their parent. If they're over here trying to get out, they don't want to be there, they don't want to be part of that system. Just looking at my own life over here, it's much better. Not comfortable to stand right in front of them. So standing in the right place shows that that system's as resolved as it can be. But it doesn't mean just because you don't have animosity towards one of your parents that it's in balance. You could be, if I ask you to set it up now and you'd be like, okay, this is my mum, this is me. Instantly I'm going to know you're standing in the position of your mum's parents behind them. And it's really common. So instantly I'm like, right, okay, it should be, and by the end of the constellation, we would have it like that.
That's one of the things that always amazes me, how many, particularly women, are mothering their mothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you a very quick story. I had a sister said, oh, let me do a constellation. She couldn't get pregnant for ages, and then she kept miscarrying, and we did some work on that. Anyway, she got pregnant. She was about 4 or 5 months in, and she said, I want to do a constellation to just clear the way. So she set them up, and she had a daughter already. So she had them like this. So this was her and her husband and her living daughter. And she's like, I said, oh, how does that feel for you? She's like, oh, it's really cozy. We're all really tight, everything. And then put representatives on, and the representatives went, I can't breathe. It's so claustrophobic. There's no space. That is not a healthy setup. Can you see? That's not a healthy setup. And then the new, sorry, it's a bit Rangersy that. Then the new soul comes in. Anyway, we separate them, and then the mother wants to go stand off here. So then the new soul comes in. This is the baby in her belly, and then where does the baby go? Here. So the rep for the baby, why do you want to go there? I just want to hold her. Just want to hold her. This baby hadn't even been born yet, and it was coming in to hold the mother because she was having a breakdown over here. No, it's fine. Don't have a breakdown. I'll hold you. So this is what we do, guys. This is why we hold our parents' pain. Whatever it is that they can't hold, we come in and hold it for them. So you can't say, oh, maybe it's because when they were 6 months old I did this, or maybe when they were 2 I did this. It wasn't even born yet, and it was coming in energetically. That's how strong this is. But that was also a lot to do with the backstory of the mother's family system as well. So, yeah, basically, we're carrying a lot. But that doesn't have to be doomsday. It can simply be released, and it can be released without even having to do constellation after constellation after constellation. Janie will tell you. It's just by having this perspective. Just by learning these types of things starts to seep in, and you start to see things differently. Instead of just, well, my dad was not an emotional man. He was just he was there. That was it, But actually, we're breaking through to the point where I believe, and I'm so overjoyed because we've been doing women's work for a long time now, for women to come into their empowerment and their sense of self. But actually, men's work is essential because men how generationally, how do you expect that men can be anything other than just pigeonholed into, you're supposed to be the provider, you're not supposed to be emotional, you're supposed to just be there all the time and do the right thing. And it's like, where's the, all of us, regardless of our gender, lost the feminine, but we had to, so that they survived. The wars that they went through, if you were in your feminine heart, you wouldn't have survived those wars. So the survivors survived because they had to lose that softness. So we can honour that, but we can also accept that we've not known it for many generations. We've not known that real healthy, nurturing energy. And men lost it too. And then they were just forced to be a certain thing that didn't let them be anything from their wholeness. Anything at all. So we all got squashed. And yeah, the fathers and the grandfathers and throughout all the family systems will have, for 8 years, it's what I've been hearing. Grandfather was really gentle and, all the grandkids loved him. His kids didn't, but his grandkids did. And, he just kind of sat in the corner and he was just a nice man. And then, Granny was the dictator, or you flip it round and Granddad was this violent beast and Granny just raised all the kids and did everything and got raped every day and did all this, so it's, or somewhere in between. So there's always a victim, there's always a perpetrator, and they swap over, whether it's Granny or Granddad, Mum or Dad. It's just woven in all through history. It's so generational. But actually, they don't want us to keep living that. They do want us to come into a new world, a new situation where men and women can live in the ways that those generations couldn't. So they don't want us to keep playing all this out, looking in the wrong places. They're really supportive. The ancestors are really, really supportive. If we can start working with our ancestors, not in a, I'm going to light my incense and sing to my ancestors. You don't have to do that. You can if you want. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be as simple as just changing a perspective, just actually coming in to honouring and letting go of all the stories, letting go of, okay, there was a trauma, and I'll leave that with you. One of the main parts of family constellations is, I'll go back to what I was saying about the size, is that when you pity someone, you keep them small. So when you try to help someone, you keep them small. And we might think that we're doing a really good thing, but we're actually keeping them small. So when you see someone that maybe they're disabled or they're struggling, and I think their feedback from that situation is, well, don't help me unless I ask for it, because you're taking my power away, you're taking my dignity away and pitying me. So what we're doing if you put that on a much bigger scale, is allow everyone to hold their own destiny, their own life story with grace and dignity. Even if they had a really bad run where there was sexual abuse, physical dis-ease, all sorts. People have really suffered, and you look and you think, just be careful where you hold that, because if you go into pity, then they're victimized. But if you can be in that space of, wow, that's actually, I have a big feeling in my heart for you, but I'll let you hold that with your own dignity. So if you pity your parent or your grandparent or whatever you've written in that list, if you pity them, you're just feeding into the story. And a lot of people are like, okay, well, my grandmother never got to study, and I feel so bad because she was a woman that was just so suppressed and had to just bring up the kids. I'm never having kids, and I'm going to study 500 courses.
We do the extreme reactions.
Yeah, exactly. This is for you, Granny. But actually, that's not really helping Granny. It's not helping anyone, and it's very extreme.
Unless it's Constellations, one of the
What if the person's keeping themselves in being small, perpetuating that story?
Yeah.
And you pity them because they're keeping themselves in the victim story. And you have tried to
Mm-hmm.
to help them out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that scenario, which I think is quite common as well.
Sure. Yeah. I'll just repeat that. I don't know if this is how far this is picking up. So the question is, if someone's in a victim story and you try to help them out of it, and they don't want to, and they stay in that victim story, how do you then respond to that?
Yeah. So with my mum, I can see that she didn't get the attention she needed from her mum.
Mm-hmm.
Her mum's mother died very young, and she didn't get that
Yeah.
attention from her stepmother at all. And my mum has married somebody who doesn't give her attention.
Mm-hmm.
So
Of course.
Yeah, so she's, and she's so stuck in that victim.
Mm-hmm.
But I have tried in the past to point out to her that she is perpetuating the victimness. And I do feel, but that didn't go down well.
No, I can
yeah.
So you became another one of her perpetrators in her
Yes, I
victim
am.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a bitch.
Yeah. So, well, I have an answer. What do you think is the answer first?
It's funny because her neediness energetically pushes me away,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you're right. I think because of that, I'm not indulging her neediness to the extent that she would like.
But you're rejecting it.
So I'm rejecting it. So that's a perpetuation thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how would I resolve it? I guess compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Just her journey is her journey. She's never going to change now. Being able to cultivate more compassion for her.
Yeah. It's really, 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 really hard. But the ultimate liberation and what brings balance to any system is, I accept you as you are.
Mm.
So if you can get to the point of accepting your mother as she is, so what I hear is, okay, I see her in her victim story, and I want to support her. She doesn't want my support, so I've now become a perpetrator. So my only option is to indulge her or reject her. But actually, how do you get to that line in between where it's irrelevant? Because at that point is when she comes up in size. Until then, she's going to stay small.
Right. So whether it's the away from energy or the towards energy, either of those is not serving. So
No.
I'm going to become completely neutral on her story. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's resentment or
That's her
pity. Resentment or pity, one or the other. So to get to the balance is to be able to say, you're my mother, and I accept life from you and all of your gifts. I'll leave the rest with you, and I love you exactly as you are. That's really, really hard to get to that point, but that's your balance point. If you can just accept that that's her story, her journey, and even although you see the impact that it's having, I watched my mum's own health go down. She couldn't make the link between her own emotional status. We could see it. She didn't want to listen. Then she did listen, and she threw herself into all alternatives, but it was from a place of anger and resentment towards the system. And yeah, similar situation. Like, if you mention anything, then you're automatically criticizing and all of this, so you become the perpetrator. So you try, okay, I'm not going to bite, I'm just going to say,
Surface, surface.
but still inside, you're still having the reaction, whether you say it or not, you're still having the reaction. So is it one step closer to peace, but it's not really peace.
Yeah.
because you're still having the reaction. So it's not to say that we should get to a point of never being triggered, because that's unrealistic. It's okay to be triggered. But if it makes somebody less than, to me, that's what judgment is. When somebody becomes less than, if you're judging someone for not getting out of their victim story, if they become less than, then that's something that you can look at. So your mum's story, her actions, her everything are hers. And if you can leave all of that with her, and not to exclude it in any way, the opposite, is to just allow it to be there on the table without judgment. Okay, you know what? You can't, you'll maybe never do it in this life, but how can I say you can't do that without any disappointment in me? Because actually, if I say, okay, well, she's maybe never going to be able to do that. Just notice what happens in your cells when you see that. If that's a disappointment in you, you're going to contract. Okay, my mum's never going to be able to come out of her victim story. You're victimized. You're caught in that, and you're then a victim also. But if my mum's never going to be able to come out of her victim story, and I will leave that with her, and I will absolutely bow and honour her. It's a whole different thing. So it's not the words, it's how you actually feel, and that's acceptance. We don't have forgiveness in family constellations, because I've seen earlier, I need to forgive, but actually that makes one person higher than the other. That means somebody's done something worthy of forgiveness, and the collective conscience doesn't believe in that. It just believes that whatever has happened, it has a place. Separate yourself out from it. Whatever is serving, whatever is not, but not with judgment.
Does family constellations also help you understand why you've chosen to be with these parents and these children, etc.?
It can do. I also do karmic constellations, and then that, instead of ancestors, we look at past lives. And we work with the Akashic records and see, this is what you're. Also, time isn't linear, so it depends what your view is. If all lives are at the same time, there's crossover. You're playing something out in this life that's also trauma from another life. So then you're going to choose parents in this life to, who knows? It's endless. But yeah, you can. I wouldn't ever use it to find out why. Because we're not really looking for factual information in these sessions. What we're working with is the energy, and if the energy and the placements. If the placements are, I'll show you in a minute. We're going to do a session. If the placements are out of balance, we know that energetically there's not harmony there. So we use whatever tactics, techniques, whatever to clear that, and then they go into balance, and we forget about the rest. So it's not. Sometimes we have known information about the family system, and sometimes with no idea, and it goes 5 generations back, and you can't fact check that. You don't know. But these representatives are saying, this is a dead baby, they're crying, they don't know why they're crying. Boom, everyone feels the energy moves, and then they're like, suddenly I want to go and stand next to this one. So the energy just, you open the door and it pops up, whatever's been closed down, it pops up. And we go, you're welcome here, that's fine. And then the system moves. Now, whatever pops up, I'm not going to question that, because it just popped up energetically, and it was the catalyst to move the system into balance. Folk could go and try and fact check that. I don't know, was there a dead baby 5 generations back? You can if you want, but it doesn't really matter, because the outcome is that the system's now in balance. So you can try and find things out, but I wouldn't use it for that. It's more just to, you know what I mean, just to get things seen. Any other questions?
So when the system moves, so I have a sister,
Mm-hmm.
so if my sister moves here, does it impact her even though she's not here?
Yeah, it will impact out from you. So for example, if you put look at something that's unseen and it triggers a movement, a healing movement in your family system. Your whole family system will benefit from that in some way. I can't say exactly what way or how long it will take, but it will ripple into the... Because you're part of the collective conscience, the same one, for your family system, and that collective conscience governs everyone in that system. So although it might not be a direct impact, like you might be carrying something to do with money, but she isn't, it will still, whatever's seen and comes into harmony will then have other impacts throughout, which will, things will go in more into place.
Like that really answers the question about you children.
Exactly. That's why if you do it for you, the ripple effect, and you can't hold your, for as much as they try, you're basically doing the same thing in the wrong direction. So if your children come in and hold your stuff for you, then you try and hold their stuff for them. Like there's a mutual thing happening, like a child comes in and they're not victims. If you're like, oh, the children have to hold everything for me, you're victimizing them and you're making yourself the perpetrator. Oh, I haven't done my work and now my children are suffering. Oh, now I'm like double not doing my work. Yeah, in fact, I'm making it worse. So actually, if the thing is to leave everyone's destiny with them, you also have to do that for your own children, especially people with children that are in addiction and all sorts of unforeseen circumstances or abuse. You know, if the parent takes it on, yes, you've had a part in it, of course you have. But if you try to take full responsibility, that's my fault, then you're not supporting them at all. Because part of it is their own course of destiny. But everything's co-created, every single thing, and that's what we'll see in the inner dance later on in the week. The energies between us in this room are all co-creating at the same time. We're all triggering each other on different levels. We're all supporting each other on different levels. We're all mirroring on different levels. That if you put magic glasses on right now, you could see it happening in the room. But we don't, because but that's what's happening. So everything's co-created. Every dynamic, every exchange. If you go down to the shop just now and end up shouting at someone, I shouted at someone yesterday in the co-op. In the co-op in Broadford, because I had such a sore head and I was nearly here, and Lily, I was like, can you get milk? So I went in, and it was that way. My head, every step I took, my head was pounding, and I needed to pee. And I said to the young guy at the checkout, "Is there a toilet in here?" And he went, "It's for paying customers only." And I said, I'm going to do shopping, but I'm not going to take it in the toilet with me. Can I just... Where is it? And he went, oh, it's up there. I said, where? Up there. He said, and as I was walking away, and he went, but it's for paying customers only. I went, no, it's not a good time, mate. I shouted across the shop, I heard you! Did you hear me? I'm going to shop. So if I think of situations like that, or any situation that you have, it's carrying all my milk. See? You don't believe me. Like, I know what you're saying. It's like you're basically calling me a liar right now. And I've not got time for this. And he was about 15 as well, and I was just like, if I'd had the energy, I would have complained to his manager, because I was like, that's not good customer service. Anyway, I'm fully aware that I co-created that. You know, I'm not just like, oh, that little guy's a dick, and you know, I'm not. You know, like it was just a situation. So when you can reflect on every situation in your life, as small, or if if you had an argument with someone at the petrol station, or like every single thing is co-created. We're not victims of anything, but we also don't have to be the perpetrators. If we can start to let go of that idea, and we're all mutually equal, and that everyone's just carrying their own part, and actually if we can see other humans the same with that, I don't want to say compassionate heart space, because that's ended up having a whole lot of it's a meaning that it's ruined. I think that statement, because it makes it's like, oh, just people can do anything, and I'm in compassion. That's not what I mean. But if you can have an awareness when you interact with any human, even if they are really out of order, or when you watch politicians, when you watch, all the bad stuff that's happening, if you can hold that from that neutral state, that there are polarities, and that the collective, as in all of us, are holding our own destiny. We're part of that destiny, and it might be like the bigger version of your mum stuck in her victim story, but if we start to get involved in these little fights of this one and that one and this one and that one, actually we're just let us as a human race hold our own destiny without getting so involved in trying to make it one way or the other, and do your work inside. Do your work inside about stop seeing separation, stop seeing victims, perpetrators, and just come into that neutral heart space of humanity. Then we don't have to go out fighting here, there, and everywhere. The whole thing changes. Our whole collective changes. But and it's like a bigger version of a constellation. Whilst we hold this one, no, good, that one, bad, this one, right doing, wrong doing, then we're all over the place. We'll never be in that correct line. We'll just always be separate and in chaos. So this is how constellations works in the bigger and in the smaller. Okay, how am I doing for time?
I think my yoga tea bag says it all.
What does it say?
It says oneness within is harmony with all.
Yeah, oneness within is harmony with all.
I'll leave that there for anyone to.
Thank you.
Feels like a good time for a pee break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just before we pee break, can anyone, I just want to open it up to, no, actually pee break and then we'll do it. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Say bye from Sky.
Bye.